and welcome to another episode of Cinema Sleuths. I am Luke Deckard.
And I am Matthew Booth.
What are we investigating this week?
Well, this week we're looking at 1973's The Long Goodbye, starring Elliott Gould, Nina Van Pallandt, and Sterling Hayden. Written by Leigh Brackett and adapted from the novel by Raymond Chandler and directed by Robert Altman. The IMDb logline is Private Eye Philip Marlowe helps friend Terry Lennox out of a jam and is implicated in his wife Sylvia's murder. He also is hired by Eileen Wade to locate her dipsomaniac husband Roger, who frequently disappears when he wants to dry out. Now, this is a film and a half, I think, and so we decided.
I'd say so.
We decided, didn't we, that we perhaps needed a third sleuth for this one.
Indeed.
And so we are proud and honoured to welcome Maxim Jakubowski. Maxim, welcome. Maxim is a well-known writer of crime fiction, editor of a number of anthologies on crime fiction. He's the previous chair of the CWA, the Crime Writers Association, as well as the recipient of the 2009 CWA Red Herring Award for Lifetime Achievement. Thoroughly deserved. Maxim, welcome to the podcast.
Nice to be on it.
Yes.
I'll try not to be too mean.
Hey, these are mean streets, so you know.
Yeah, be as mean as you like.
We don't hold punches back on these mean cinematic streets, let me tell you.
I mean, this is a film and a half. I mean, I'm fascinated to see what people think of this, and indeed what you two think of this.
Yes. Well, on that note, let's get into first or initial impressions. Maxim, let's go with yourself. Do you remember the first time you saw it? What that experience was like? The emotions from it, or just generally your impression of The Long Goodbye.
Well, the first time I saw it was actually when I was still living in Paris, in France. And I was obviously a great Robert Altman fan, obviously loved Nashville and some of the films he did during those years. And it came to me as a bit of a surprise. Obviously, I had read Chandler, and my first impression is, where's Chandler gone? Basically, what's left of the Chandler novel is just the skeleton, i.e. Marlowe helps Terry Lennox to go to Mexico and then finds out that he's dead and that he might or might not have assassinated his wife. And then the film sort of I wouldn't say peters out, but just goes on to lots of different directions. But in a way, I mean, it's Chandler made easy insofar as, I mean, I reread The Long Goodbye. Here we are, a first edition.
Oh, nice.
And
snap, Maxim, mine's down there.
Basically, what Robert Altman and obviously Leigh Brackett have done is they filleted the book, and basically it's an improvisation on what I would call sunshine noir, and I must say at the time, because obviously I was and am a Chandler purist to a certain extent. I was somewhat taken aback. I thought, is he taking the piss? And over the years, I've watched it a few times, and then I think it was about 10, 12 years ago, it had been remastered and it was being re-released on DVD. And I was asked to do a commentary, which was absolutely wonderful because the DVD company recorded it at the National Film Theatre in London in the main auditorium, and it was just me. Yeah. Nobody else, but obviously the interviewer and the cameraman pontificating about the book and the film. And so obviously I watched it again for the first time in probably a couple of decades, and I saw it. I had a whole new perspective on it. As a result of which, I said, I mean, I haven't watched my own pontifications back, as I hate watching myself on screen, and I still have a DVD somewhere over there on the shelf. But when I was jointly running the Shots in the Dark Film and Literary Festival at the National Film Theatre some years later, we did show it, obviously, as one of our retrospectives. So and every time I see the film now, basically, even though the book has been filleted and just a skeleton of the plot is there, I think it actually is now probably one of the most faithful to Chandler movies there is, in a sort of oblique way, and it's quite fascinating. And in fact, it, apart from maybe the naked yoga hippies overlooking Marlowe's flat, it doesn't feel of its time anymore, even though obviously the whole momentum of Altman's vision was obviously to take Marlowe, who is a 1940s noir detective, and bringing him to the 70s, which he does, except that, of course, Marlowe is unchanged, and Elliott Gould plays him with the cigarette that never leaves his lips, and acts almost as if he's rambling through the intrigue, not really knowing where he's going half the time, which does happen to Marlowe in the book. But of course, the book is even more complicated and has so many subplots that even Chandler, I think, once interviewed, was asked a question about, I can't remember which specific character in the book, and said, "Oh, I'm not sure. I don't know who killed him."
Oh yeah,
and obviously, and it was wonderful because obviously it brings a lot of things together insofar as obviously Altman went to Leigh Brackett to do the screenplay, and Leigh Brackett, of course, was a wonderful writer whom I actually published in my Blue Murder imprint many, many years ago. Well, this was long after she died. But of course, has written half a dozen incredibly underrated noir novels. And of course, was also an excellent scriptwriter, to which we owe actually one of the Star Wars films of all things.
Indeed.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting insofar as the first adaptation of A Long Goodbye was co-scripted by... no, it wasn't A Long Goodbye. I think it was The Big Sleep. Was actually... scripted by Brackett and William Faulkner, which was an odd combination, to say the least. So I think the film is an object of fascination.
Yes.
And it stands, it's rather unique as to where it stands in the history of film noir.
I agree. I've seen the film. I've not seen this film many times. This was for this podcast marks the second time I've watched this film. And the thing I sort of took away from it on this particular occasion was that this film is really, it feels like it's a film at the crossroads of time. You have, as you said, Marlowe is clearly a 1940s man living in the 1970s. Altman referred to him as Rip Van Marlowe. Just sort of woken up and is in a daze. And I you can feel that, and you can relate to that. He feels like a man out of time.
It's not just the eternal cigarettes. But the moment one is, he's lighting another. It's also the fact that he's always wearing the same suit. He is the old gumshoe of old, always wearing the same disheveled suit. And even his car is a 1950s car. His Lincoln Continental.
Exactly. No, yeah, exactly. All of that stuff was interesting to me, to see Marlowe kind of pulled through time and slapped into the 70s, and him just being in constant contrast with with 70s attitudes. You got the you said the naked women next door, the health and the healthy kind of yoga stuff going on. Then you've got the big haired guy at the grocery stores who was coming across the sort of like hippie rock kind of individuals. Then he's dumped into the jail. Like it was so fascinating to see Gould's portrayal of Marlowe, because he really feels very Bogart-esque, but slapped in the 70s, and I thought that was very interesting. And I found myself, and there's also a sense of literary history happening here, because Sterling's portrayal of Roger Wade's strikingly of Hemingway, very, very much a Hemingway attitude. They didn't, and so I thought that was fascinating. But then also you have, like I said, we got Leigh Brackett writing the script, who wrote the Big Sleep, or co-wrote The Big Sleep. Then you got, like I said, Sterling Hayden, who we've already he's been on this. Well, we have talked about one of his films. He was in The Killing, so he's a familiar face to this. And there's always obviously a Howard Hawks connection, and with The Big Sleep. So this is such an interesting film. The sort of old guard, new guard, classic people who wrote for film noir, doing neo noir now, and I found this a very fascinating watch, and more enjoyable this time around than the first time I watched it. Probably, I don't know, close to 10 years ago.
Mm. It certainly grows on you. That's the whole thing about it, and it grows because you sort of reach the other dimensions, but you can't do it in one go. It has to come gradually. At first, there's this sense of I wouldn't say shock, but of surprise. I mean, what is Altman doing here?
Yeah,
I agree, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of in the middle of both of you, as it were, because, like Maxim, I don't remember the first time I saw this to say how old I would have been, but I do remember coming away from it thinking, like Maxim says, where's Chandler gone? What? But revisiting it a few years later, I thought, well, actually, how do you film The Long Goodbye, the novel, and keep it faithful? As slavishly faithful. And I'm not sure it's possible. So I then started to think, right, well, if you can't do that, then what do you do with it? And when you then look at what they've done with what Altman does with it, it's interesting. You've both used more than once the word fascinating. And I think that is what this film is. The choices that Altman makes and Brackett makes, they are taking the spirit of Chandler. And I think I do agree with Maxim that this is a very faithful, in tone and atmosphere and spirit, adaptation of Chandler and of Marlowe himself, that is updated, if that's not too coarse a phrase, for the 1970s. But even now it looks like itself a period piece, and I agree. I think it's a fascinating film. That word's going to keep being used, I think, because I don't think this is a film that you can pin down necessarily. There are bits in it that I absolutely admire. There are bits in it I think, really? But there are also bits in it that I think that is absolutely the Marlowe of the books. There are just bits of it that are just, for me, pure Chandler. And this is my favourite Chandler novel. But I'm not sure a faithful adaptation of it would be a sort of 4-hour film, I think.
Well, at least with streaming
at least
days, maybe somebody...
Yeah, and I think sometimes you have to just take the essence
as an 8 by 50 minute series.
Yeah.
Then again, how do you do it? I mean, the only way of doing it would be to do what... I can't remember which stream produced it, but what they did a couple of years ago with the adaptation of Ripley with Tom Scott in the part, which was done in black and white, and which was also
Netflix,
quite a wonderful, and I loved it. And because The Big Sleep is the most labyrinthine of Chandler's novels, and And I'm saying that knowing that most of the novels do sort of jump in every possible direction, and it's not for a sense of misdirection by the author. It's just because one knows that Chandler was just improvising half the time. In many of them, he started with a short story and then started expanding, adding things, and then sometimes forgetting that he'd added things. But that's what makes the charm of the Chandler novels.
Yeah. And I think this is his most personal novel. I think this is his most honest novel, because I think it is a novel about a man struggling with addiction as much as it is about anything else. Both Marlowe and Wade. And I think, certainly from the Wade perspective, I think the film captures that. I think it does a very good job of capturing what Wade is suggested as being in the novel. And I think Hayden is fantastic in this. I mean, he's a powerhouse in this.
Yeah. And
I agree with you, Luke, about the Hemingway connection. I think there's definite Hemingway vibes coming off Hayden's performance here.
Yeah, I agree. Well, before we get into the story, let's go behind the camera and talk about a little bit about the production and how it got made. So, the cost for The Long Goodbye was $1.7 million. Its box office return was around $959,000. Not good. Not good. Didn't make the money back. Wasn't a financial hit, which is a shame. What's the reason for it? Who knows? Was it marketing? Was it something else? Was it, people not resonating with this version of Chandler at the time? Who knows? I know that the marketing in LA didn't seem to land, and they remarketed differently for its New York release, which apparently had a better result, apparently. But Altman, who directed the film, he wasn't the first choice as director. And I find it fascinating that one of the choices is Howard Hawks, who did The Big Sleep. Do we think Hawks coming back with Leigh Brackett to do another Marlowe in the 1970s, would that have been better?
It's difficult to say, insofar as, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not checking on IMDb right now, but Leigh Brackett also scripted for Hawks on some westerns, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe.
But and it would have been a totally different film. I mean, this was Hawks was already very old in the 1970s, and I can't remember what year his final film was, but it would have been completely different. It's certainly Altman's version of Chandler. There's there's so many subtle little things about it that you don't realize at first viewing. For instance, over the initial credits, you've got this wonderful, lush, Sinatra-like song called The Long Goodbye, which was written by John Williams with Johnny Mercer, who obviously was one of the great lyricists of, obviously, what I would term the swing smooth area. But then later in the film, and there's no music in the film, there's only people playing or singing in the background. There is actually no soundtrack. But the only other times there is something on the soundtrack, it's that same song but done in different styles.
Yes.
That's a very, very Altman-esque sort of a trope. And the fact that to add to both the viewer and obviously Elliott Gould as Marlowe's progress through the investigation, so much of the dialogue or the action takes place either off screen or on the left-hand side of the screen or the right-hand side, and you're thinking, oh, have I missed something all the time? So there's this wonderful element of confusion and of Elliott Gould stumbling upon things all the time, which I think is in the direction rather than the Leigh Brackett's writing, actually.
I agree with that, because one of the things I found very interesting was that Altman wanted it. There are no static shots in the film. Everything is constantly moving, even if it's a small movement. There's this constant. So everything is done, like I believe, on a dolly. So everything is moving, give it the impression of you are watching through someone else's eyes, and that sort of like a person moving through and behind and around. And I found that really interesting. I don't think we would have got something that interesting in a Howard Hawks 1970s version of The Long Goodbye. But so I quite like that. But I also love this quote from Altman where he said, "Chandler fans will hate my guts, and I don't give a damn."
Yeah.
And I like that because I think to some degree, when you're doing an adaptation of some kind, you want to be respectful to the source material, but at the same time, you want to give it your stamp one way or another. And I think particularly by saying I don't care what the fans think is a really wise thing, because nowadays everything is all, what does market research say, what does Twitter say, what is blah blah blah, influencing creative decisions. It's like, no, they can piss off. I'll do what I want, and if they respond to it, that's great. If they don't respond to it, well, whatever. I did what I thought was best creatively. So I actually quite like that attitude in approaching this film.
I think I do as well, and I think it works. It's always good when it works. Some people butcher adaptations and they don't work. And as long as if you're going to do something different with an adaptation of a novel like this, I think the resulting film or TV series, whatever it may be, has to stand on its own merits. If it falls on its own merits, then it's just a butchered adaptation of the source material. And I don't think this is a butchering of the source material. I think filleting is a better word to steal from Maxim from earlier, because I think this does stand on its own 2 feet, and it stands on its own 2 feet because of Altman. So I agree with everything you just said about the camera constantly moving, and Gould's mumbling to me is a sort of antidote to a voiceover, where the voiceovers are always very sharp, snappy, funny, tragic. Gould's mumbling is, I think, a perfect antidote to that, because he is a man who's just woken up, in inverted commas. And he is sort of mumbling around, stumbling around. And I think, to answer the question about whether it would have been better with Hawks and Brackett back together, I don't think you can necessarily catch lightning twice in a bottle. And I think we would have got a much more conventional adaptation. And I don't think it would have stacked up too well against The Big Sleep, and it would then have just failed to impress and paled by comparison. So I think it's a godsend, quite honestly. Yeah, the original choice didn't come off.
I think there's something to that, because kind of following on what you said, Maxim. Altman said while during filming that these quoted saying we have a script, but we don't follow it closely. And I remember there was an interview with Gould that's on the DVD as well, where he said I think during one of the early screenings of it, he approached Brackett and he said to her, he said, "Look, we took so many liberties. Are you okay with that? Like, do you feel your work is validated here?" And according to him, he said, "No, I absolutely feel it's more than validated." So it's like she presented them with the structure of what to do, and then Altman came in with his creative vision. Gould came in with his creative input. So did Sterling as well, and they were able to build off this and bounce off and create something that is, as a Chandler adaptation, is really honestly one of the most unique Chandler adaptations. It doesn't have the mumbling is almost a sort of replacement for the voiceover that you might have got in another version, or we typically get in other versions. And I quite like that. I quite like that it's different and uncomfortable to kind of experience for the first time as a Marlowe fan and Chandler fan.
And none of it feels like a gimmick. The mumbling doesn't feel like a gimmick. The 70s setting doesn't necessarily feel like a gimmick. Whereas, and like I'm just picking up on something you said there, like about a sort of interesting take on Chandler. If you look at The Lady in the Lake, which has got a first-person point of view, in that everyone's talking to the camera, and that is a gimmick, and it's a gimmick that wears pretty thin even on first watch. So I much prefer Altman's choice of constantly moving camera, so that there is that sort of voyeur. The audience is a voyeur. That is your first-person point of view to me, or it's equivalent, because you are. It does make you feel that you're in that room with them, and in the more uncomfortable parts of this film, it is disconcerting, and I think that's what Altman does, and I think, but none of it feels like it's done for show or for any sort of tricksy reason. It feels perfectly natural.
Yeah, it's not flashy. It's not flashy.
That's the word.
And also,
I'd love to get. Go on.
I mean, one of the interesting things is, unless I'm mistaken, it might have been the first time Chandler had been adapted, certainly at full length, in color rather than black and white, which was also obviously, which turns it into a sort of a sunshine noir.
Yeah.
And the color photography is slightly desaturated all the time. The DP was Vilmos Zsigmond, who just a little bit earlier had come off Easy Riders. So it was basically blending the 40 noir ethos with basically the new. It was, in a way, Altman responding to the new wave of American filmmakers.
There's a film called Marlowe with James Garner from '68, and that's colour.
Yeah.
However,
which feels like a TV film, actually.
Yeah, exactly, and it's not coloured. It's not coloured in the way that works anywhere near as well as this does, because, like you say, Maxim, the colour in this is very muted and sort of decent, and it is an obvious throwback to the noir, the shadows and light of noir, whereas the Garner film is full on Technicolor,
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the same impact, I don't think.
Now, on Brackett, I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this. She was really not a big fan of the Long Goodbye. She is quoted as saying she didn't really like the plots. It was riddled with cliches, and of course, obviously had the problem of needing to sort of update it. But I mean, Matt, you said this is your favorite Chandler novel. What do we think of The Long Goodbye as a book? Do we agree with Brackett that it is riddled with cliches, and are there problems with the plot? She had problems with the plot. What do we think?
I genuinely think you've got to sort of decide what you want to get out of it. If you want a satisfactory whodunit, then she's absolutely right. But if you want a novel, like I say, about a man coming to terms with what he might be, and a man knowing that he's alone, and I mean by that I mean absolutely alone and lonely. And if you want a character study of a man who puts his own morals and principles above his own safety, then I think you've got a pretty good character-driven novel here, which just has an element of a murder plot thrown in it, because the murder plot's not very satisfactory at all, I don't think. As a if you boil it down, take all the stuff that I think makes this novel great, and you just have, I don't know, what would it be? Perhaps a 60-page murder story. It's pretty weak, I think. All that business about her being in it. She's sleepwalking at one point and thinking Marlowe's someone else and all the rest of it. I mean, I don't really buy into that. But I'm not sure that that's what Chandler wanted to get out of it either. And I think as a character study and as a man's journey into himself and what he is, I think it's brilliant. I think it's up there.
I like the novel, although obviously it's, it is a classic. And I'm not particularly bothered by the fact that there are lots of loose threads hanging around, that some of some plots are derivative. As to the cliches, maybe they feel like cliches now, but it's because obviously Chandler created what tropes which have become cliches, unfortunately. And everybody has been imitating him since, but he was the original thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot to be said for that.
I agree. Let's chat casting a little bit. Let's dive a bit deeper. Elliott Gould obviously played Philip Marlowe, but he was not the first choice. There was actually some contention. For a while they actually didn't want him because of some problems he had on a previous film. But other choices, it's always fun to look at these alternative castings. The three that I found. One is Walter Matthau, Leigh Marvin, and Robert Mitchum, who of course would go on to play Marlowe in The Big Sleep in '78, the Farewell My Lovely first in '75, and then The Big Sleep in '78. Which The Big Sleep and The Long Goodbye share the same conceit, and that is we're going to update Marlowe. Yet one works and one does not. At all. But what do we think about one of these three guys in Gould's place?
I think Marvin might have been interesting, although it would have been, the film would have lacked any humor whatsoever, as he was such an earnest actor,
yes,
both in persona and probably on screen, regardless of the lines being fed to him by the script. Who was the other?
Well, Robert Mitchum and Walter Matthau.
Oh, Matthau, I don't know, although Matthau has got that same, shall we say, ambling, loose personality, and was quite good in, I can't remember which, was it a Don Siegel movie, a crime movie?
I can't remember.
I can't remember.
I am not an aficionado on old Walter's filmography.
Yeah.
I know him from The Odd Couple. When I think of him, I think of The Odd Couple.
Well, I'm sure Jack Lemmon wouldn't have been the right Marlowe at any rate.
No. What about Mitchum? Would we want to see Mitchum in this?
I'm not sure Mitchum would have been able to work with somebody like Altman or vice versa. They might have come to blows, or one of them walking off the set.
Yeah, I think that's probably a given.
I mean, obviously here we're talking about hypothetical, but somebody who ironically also came, like Mitchum, obviously from the black and white traditional noir period, who might have been interesting because he was already at the end of his career, would have been Richard Widmark. I think he could have made I think he could have made an interesting Marlowe. Yes,
I think overall, I'm very happy with Elliott Gould's portrayal here, and I think the sort of, there's a romanticism happening behind the scenes of, you've got Leigh Brackett, they wanted Howard Hawks, they wanted Robert Mitchum, they're wanting a lot of people who were big in film noir, classic film noir, and I think the film it's to the film's benefit that generally it didn't re-team up all of those components. Yeah. I think that is the thing that helps this one stand out the most. Really, I think essentially all you really have is you have Brackett, and then you have Sterling Hayden. Those two were sort of your anchors to classic film noir in a relatively film that is push well beyond that. So I think it's for the best. As fun as it is to think about, And when we do obviously get to see Mitchum and play Marlowe twice, and like I said, The Big Sleep is I cannot stand his version of The Big Sleep at all. I don't know why it's set in London. I don't know why it's modern. I just don't. There's too many whys. I do like Farewell, My Lovely, but Murder, My Sweet is my favorite adaptation of that book. So yeah, I think it's for the best. I think it's for the best.
I mean, my other favorite Marlowe, I can't remember now. I'm forgetting who it was. There was that segment in the Fallen Angels series. I can't remember who played Marlowe in that, and I can't remember who directed it. It might have been Steven Soderbergh, but I'm not sure. And it was called Red Wind.
It's Danny Glover.
Oh, Danny Glover.
Was it Danny Glover? Yeah.
Danny
Glover. Yeah.
That was awesome. I love that.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
That was we covered that episode ages ago. We did that one particularly because I was so fascinated by Glover in that role and in that time period as well, that I was like, this is fascinating. Like if you want to like really do something different with Marlowe, that's an interesting way of doing it. And Glover was fantastic. I would have loved to have seen more of him as Marlowe. Actually, it caught the voice, the tone of Chandler. Yes, yeah. Everything about that his performance as Marlowe was great, and visually that was great. I love. I'm a big fan. That episode was really good. I could. We're talking about The Long Goodbye. I got to get back on track. We are known for our tangents. We
are known for tangents.
Rabbit trail.
I just want to say something about Robert Mitchum, because I'm a big fan of Robert Mitchum generally, and as Marlowe. Not in The Big Sleep. I think he's the best thing in The Big Sleep, but he's Big Sleep walking through it. But I think his Farewell, My Lovely is really good. Second to Murder, My Sweet, I agree, but he's really good. But I don't think he'd be a good Marlowe in this. I think he's too traditionally noir, really. And what I think is good about this, as you say, Luke, that you've got your anchors in the original period, but when you try and think what this film is trying to do, and that is update it in inverted commas, the more of those you have, the less effective it is. And I think part of the reason that I'm glad they didn't get Hawks back, part of the reason they didn't use Mitchum, is because there's too much of a callback then to the original period, and that dilutes what makes this film special. Yeah. Because the whole point of this film is that is a time gone by, and it's out of date. So the more you hark back to it, the less effective that conceit is, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Gould's Marlowe is a man out of his time. I mean, he's been taken the 40s into the 70s. I mean, he's been transplanted, and in a way, he's mumbling his way through it because he's trying to make sense of it.
Exactly.
And anyway, and there's no way that Mitchum could have acted with a cat.
No. But also on that, like that opening scene with the cat food and the girls, and oh hi Mr. Marlowe, you're such a good neighbor, Mr. Marlowe. He's like, I gotta be, I'm a private eye. That's not Mitchum. Mitchum would not have responded in that way. Like
Mitchum would have been in the party.
Maybe, who knows? Yeah. I just found that sort of that his whole response to all of that, I think, was, if we look at how Gould handled that scene, I just don't see it playing as well. And also, Mitchum being older would have made him feel, it just would have felt maybe a little bit gross.
Yes.
Like being next door to all of these naked ladies, whereas Gould is a young guy. So it's like they're all young together. And I think that's another really interesting component, is this is a young feeling film. Everyone feels quite young. Not entirely everyone, but like except for example for Roger Wade, but everyone else has this sort of 1970s youthfulness, trying to deal with life, deal with drugs, deal with things, all that kind of stuff. And I think I think going back to dear old Mitchum, I think having him in this would not be the best thing. But speaking of old people, Sterling Hayden was fantastic in this. My God, what a crazy, insane performance did this guy put on. And Altman was uncertain about having him in the film. He wasn't his first choice, but obviously was very happy with what he got from him, because he was so gripping with every scene that he was in. I was just like, man, I don't know. What'd you guys think of Hayden? I was in love with his performance. This was amazing.
I said before, I think he's a powerhouse in this. He's absolutely fearless in the performance.
And of course, he's a link to earlier waves of noir also.
Yeah.
And the conversations between him and Gould that are largely improvised are brilliant. And that's the quality of acting you've got here, that they can improvise those scenes and make them so effective and compelling and funny in many ways, but dangerous in others. It's just so good, so good, and it's almost Hayden's film. He almost steals it.
Yeah. Were you aware that towards the end of his life, after he'd retired from acting, in fact, shortly after the shooting this movie, he actually wrote a great novel.
No, I didn't.
It's an incredible. It's not a crime book. It's a sort of how would I put it? It's a high seas adventure. It's quite long. I can't remember the title. It's out of print now, but I'm sure it can be found on eBay because obviously
is it called Voyage, Maxim?
That's it. Yeah.
Voyage, a novel of 1896, published in 1976.
It's an incredible novel because, oddly enough, I can remember having a conversation about noir, Marlowe, and other things with the French editor and critic François Guérif many years ago, and somehow the conversation led to Sterling Hayden, and I mentioned the book, and François got hold of it, and this was long after Hayden's death, and acquired it, and it became quite a big bestseller in France, I think about nearly 15 to 20 years after Hayden's death.
Oh, interesting.
It's a great, it didn't have, I think it had obviously some good reviews in America, but it wasn't a great commercial success, but it's an incredible novel. It's also a very personal novel, partly autobiographical at times. It was quite a character.
That's interesting. I did not know that. I feel like this happens every once in a while. We do these episodes, and I find out that someone has written a book or a series of books. I'm like, I'm gonna have to hunt this down now, aren't I?
More to the TBR pile.
Oh yeah, exactly. No. It never ends. It never ends. All right, let's focus a little bit more on the story itself. If that can be done. There are so many great scenes throughout this film, and so many great bits of dialogue that, given what Gould said in that interview, you really don't know, was this Brackett or was this Gould and others coming up with these things. One thing I really loved is when Eileen is hiring Marlowe to find Roger. She's like, should I pay you in advance? And he goes, no, I prefer an itemized account. That way there's no misunderstanding. It's such a simple thing and sort of throwaway, but I'm like, I just really love that aspect about his character, where he's like, I'm not even going to take your money until the job is done. I'm not going to, I'm not, which happens in the Marlowe books and stuff. But the way he comes across, the way he's not money hungry, the way he's just sort of, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding as to who I am and who you are and what I've spent money on. And so we're just going to do, I just thought there was a very fascinating aspect of his character come out in that moment.
Which is unlike the Marlowe in the books, who's always, was it $50 in expenses?
Yes, $50 a day plus expenses, exactly. But he's like, no, don't pay me in advance. So it's like, I love that. I thought that was fascinating. And then earlier on, when he's been told that Lennox is supposedly dead and committed suicide, He's like, it's all wrapped up in a big bag of shit. Like
Yeah.
it's so good in that it's not trying to ham fist a noir like or noir-esque dialogue. It's just doing what those type of figures would do and say in that period, which again, I'm like, is it Brackett? Is this Gould? Is this a mixture? Probably a mixture of the two. But it gives it a more sort of, you know, when you're hearing him, you know, rattle off these lines, it gives it a more kind of authentic vibe. Whereas, you know, you see something like, I don't know, the film Marlowe with Liam Neeson, and it just feels hackneyed, you know. Whereas this feels like a very earnest and authentic adaptation and modernization of Marlowe. What about you guys? What were some of your favorite scenes, favorite moments?
Well, I love, even though I'm not a great lover of cats, I love the cat scenes, which lead, of course. I can't remember with which minor character he's discussing. He mentions his cat, and the guy comes back at Gould's Marlowe and says, "Oh, I don't need a cat. I've got a girl."
Oh yes, it's the guy from the grocery. I think it's the guy from the grocery store.
It's
One of the guys from the grocery
yeah.
store. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
He's just been arrested.
I don't need a cat. I got a girl.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I like one of my favorite Marlowe bits in this is when he's being tailed by the
Harry
rookie gangster, and he says, "This is the address of where I'm going in case you get lost."
Yes, and then he throws it away. And then he throws it away.
He throws it away. Yeah, yeah. I think that is a great moment. I mean, that's Marlowe being, you know, cool, and he's a bit like it with. There's a sort of junior private eye, and I think it's the High Window. And he's tailing Marlowe in a sort of a Panama hat or something ridiculous.
Yes.
And he spots him straight away, and it's that sort of, you know. There's a lot of this Marlowe that's got its roots in Chandler, and this is one of.
Oh yes. No, it certainly captures the spirit of Chandler.
Yeah. And he says to the same man that the whole idea of following me is that I'm not meant to know you're following me.
Yes.
I just think that those exchanges are great.
I do want to highlight, or Maxim, is there any scenes you want to highlight before I move on to something else?
No, do go on.
Cool. I want to highlight the character of Marty Augustine, played by Mark Rydell.
Himself quite a good director, actually.
Yes. This guy, in the same way that Sterling Hayden was stealing this show, he was stealing it when he was on screen. He was terrifying, genuinely. I was like, wow,
terrifying.
This is a gangster that I'm, you see gangsters all the time in these films or in these sorts of books, and they, sometimes they just come across as okay, whatever. You're trying to be scary, but this isn't fully working. But that first scene where he is at Marlowe's flat and he's wanting this money that Lennox has apparently taken from him, yada yada yada. And then he's got a mistress with him, and he just goes in real soft and gentle, and he's talking about how much I sleep with a lot of people, don't I, darling? She nods, but I love you. I make love to you. You're the real deal. I love you. Isn't that right? Yes. And then, she's asked for a bottle of Coke. They bring in a bottle of Coke that's nearly empty. He finishes it off. And then when he just bashes that bottle across her face, slicing her face open, and then turns Marlowe and goes, I'm doing that to someone I love. Imagine what I'm going to do to you.
Yeah.
Like
you, I don't even like, he says.
Yeah. Bloody chills. Absolute mother effing chills. I was like, this is like Noah Cross level of bad guy that it's a shame we don't talk about this guy. This guy doesn't get talked about in the pantheon of great neo-noir on screen gangsters. This guy was unhinged.
Yeah. Well, 10 years later, Joe Pesci's doing the same sort of thing, isn't he? The sort of creepy but genuinely terrifying, but done with a sort of chumminess, that makes it all the more terrifying. But
And there's also, of course, earlier, you mentioned, obviously, Joe Pesci later, but earlier, obviously, there's a scene of senseless violence against a woman in The Big Heat.
oh yes,
Yes, of course.
Which I think Rydell might have had in mind.
Yes, that is a really good point. We should have thought
That's
about
a
that since
very good point,
we have covered that stupid episode. I like that film. The film is great. That is a really good point. That is probably an homage to that. I found this film interesting because you're seeing these things from the past being redressed in this present film, and then I'm seeing things that I'm like, this sort of echoes things in the future, like. When we meet Joanne again, the woman who Marty slashes her face, when we meet her again, she's got her face all bandaged up, and it's very creepy. And it really heavily reminded me of Tim Burton's Batman, because he has that girlfriend. He takes the big boss's girlfriend after he takes over the criminal empire, and the next time we see her. Well, at one point we see her, she's all beautiful and fine, and then the next time we see her, she's wearing like a porcelain mask.
Yeah.
Because he has effed up her face through his crazy experiments, and so I was just like, this is fascinating. This is very much a sort of, was Tim Burton thinking about this when he was doing stuff like that? Because you got a nasty gangster who's clearly abused his lover, facially, which harkens back all the way to the Big Heat. Like, it's just really fascinating just watching this film and seeing it go into the past and go into the future. But yeah, I have no idea if there's any connection to the Batman at all, but I did think of 89 Batman when we see her later again.
I mean, the Coke bottle sequence is one of the best in this film, and genuinely shocking, because even though something is probably going to happen, you don't see that bottle coming at all. But when you watch it the second time, it's perfectly foreshadowed. The whole point of asking for it, and the whole point, the whole reason he finishes it, which again says something about Marlowe, because he's got a half-drunk bottle of Coke in his fridge, So I think that's one of the best scenes in the film. I do think we should probably mention as well the Walter Brennan scene, the guy who is the security guard who's always doing impressions, and when Marlowe comes on, the guy coming behind me, he really likes Walter Brennan, dude. Oh great. Now, when he does his impression, and then it's the dink of the gangster who's following him, who he pulls this trick on. The guy's like, "What? What are you talking?" Oh, and then the security guard's response was, "Oh, I see." And I felt the sadness. I felt so bad for that guy in that scene, because he was acting his ass off doing these impressions. He thinks he's really good at them, and then he realized he's been played for a dope by Marlowe, and you're just like, I don't know, the way he responded, the way that actor responded in that moment just felt so real. I was like, oh man. This is secondhand cringe, and I actually feel bad for you, and wish I could just say no. It was a good impression. You know what I mean? Like, and this is what's so crazy about this film is there's all of these crazy little side characters and moments, but everything feels, in terms of like plot, we were saying it's sort of all over the place. He's going from here, he's going there. First he's got, Lennox is there, then he's dead, then he's, what is the mystery? What are we doing? Wade is there for a bit, and then eventually he, walks out into the ocean and dies, and you're just like, okay, Jesus. But it has that sort of, as we mentioned earlier, that sort of voyeuristic attitude or aspects of just sort of, we're just wandering through all these people's lives and experiencing all these different aspects, and in a way that feels surprisingly cohesive.
and compelling at the same time. Like, I'm not bored when I'm watching the security guard do his stupid impressions. I find it funny and charming, and I'm like, oh, okay, this guy's annoying, but he probably annoys every single person who comes in and out of this, this estate. But it just adds this flavor. I don't know. There's just something so. Authentic is the word that keeps coming to mind, and I think that's probably part of it. Every character you're encountering has this air of authenticity behind them that makes this whole world feel rich and real, but also like just nasty and chaotic. I mean, jumping all over the place, but like that scene, the argument scene between Eileen and Roger Wade when Marlowe is down at the beach.
Yeah,
and I love some of the blocking of it, because at one point we're outside the window looking in at them arguing, and you can see Marlowe's reflection in the window, and he's down at the beach, and then we're looking through the window at them arguing. It's like all three actors are in the scene, but Marlowe is a tiny little speck on the window, and it's just so cleverly done. But in that bit when Eileen's like, Milk, is that what you really want? And he's like, say that again.
Yeah.
And there's a moment where you really think he's going to hit her. You think he's going to just clock her, and it's unsettling. And then he's like, balls, just like, oh my God. It's you really feel like you're watching people at their most desperate and vulnerable. And you, at times, it just, I don't want to go make it sound too amazing, but there's almost elements of it that's like, is this like watching a film, or am I watching a real argument being filmed? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to the voyeur point that I made before, that, you're sort of over Marlowe's shoulder.
Mm.
He's looking on them, and so are we, and it's done so naturally that it does feel like a real argument, and you're right. You do think he's going to, even when you know the film backwards, you think I still get the impression he's going to hit her, and then he just rampages off, and I think it's one of the best scenes in it. It's one of the most dramatic scenes in it, but it's perfectly controlled. It's superb.
Mm.
Maxim, you were going to...
Yes, and I was going to say, obviously, all these little things happening on the periphery, and obviously all the minor characters, that's very much Robert Altman rather than the actual script.
Yes.
The way he knits his films together. Sometimes he seems to be more interested in the characters on the periphery rather than characters at the center of the plot, which is, of course, embodied by the fact that, obviously, Elliott Gould plays Marlowe as Little Boy Lost.
Yes.
Stumbling upon the truth when he's actually not looking. He's looking at it.
Yeah.
He is supposed to be looking at the Terry Lennox case, but in fact encounters the Wades and finds out that there is a connection between the two.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. Which I think is in the book, but in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Didn't Chandler once describe Marlowe as a man who's always walking in an empty room, permanently confused? And I think that sums up this Marlowe perfectly.
Elliott Gould embodies perfect.
Yeah, I say that sums up this Marlowe perfectly.
It does. Oh my God, it really does. What did we think of with Arnold Schwarzenegger's little cameo?
I hadn't actually noticed it on the first few viewings. Possibly because, obviously, I mean, it's amusing, no more.
It's amusing.
Yeah.
But obviously, at the time, he was just a semi-known bodybuilder rather than, obviously, the icon he's become since.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
so in a way, he's one of a gallery of Altman-esque character actors in the background.
Yeah.
He's only a few years away from Conan the Barbarian at this point. It's 2 or 3 years away. Yeah. But, I was surprised to see him, I think it's fair to say. And there is there's a shot where a single frame of film, perhaps, where he looks directly down the camera. So he's not yet learned the tricks of his trade.
Oh God. No, it was funny. Sort of reminded me a little bit of Pierce Brosnan's little small moment in The Long Good Friday, where we oh, hey, it's Pierce Brosnan right before he becomes someone.
Yeah. Well, everybody has to start somewhere.
Indeed, and I love it. I love it when you can find
and talking
big
about people starting. The other interesting thing about the film, I mean, obviously, is how good Nina Pallandt is as Eileen West, considering. I think it was, if it wasn't her first film, it was certainly her first major part. I mean, she was best known as the half of a folk singing duo at the time, and the way she embodies the femme fatale is very different to the classic noir films of the 40s and 50s. She does give it a modern gloss, but I think she's much more realistic and much more vulnerable in appearance, at any rate.
Yeah, no, I liked her a lot. I think I was reading somewhere where there was some poor reception around her performance at the time, but I was like, I think she's actually quite good. I'm not good. Being pulled out by this. I'm buying what she's selling, and yeah, she's not she's not a honey trap. She's not trying to she's not trying to necessarily woo Marlowe into bed, to seduce, to whatever, but she is obviously, yes, absolutely in that femme fatale mode, but for arguably kind of understandable. I get why she's angry.
Yeah, and going back to that scene where she has a row with Hayden's character, with Wade. I mean, she holds her own in that, and the scene where she comes out, and I think it's just after that he's setting up this drinking party with Marlowe, and she just walks out with the dog and totally blanks him, and he's shouting after her, Contessa, and all this business. And she, she's perfectly still, and I believe that. I believe that's how that character would react, and I believe it's how women in that situation probably do act if they're of that sort of makeup. Yeah. I think she's really good in it. I agree. I think she's she's not someone that I know a great deal about, I have to say, in terms of career, but I think in this film, if this is the only film that she was in, or one of the only films she was in, it's a hell of a good one to be in, and it's a hell of a good performance that she gives.
Yeah, I mean, prior to the film, I basically knew her as half of a folk singing duo with her husband, who I think was a Danish count. So they weren't actually great singers. They were a bit of a novelty act, but because of the noble connections, they used to be on I won't say afternoon TV, but early Saturday evening TV on ITV shows on a regular basis. And then suddenly she appears in Hollywood and in a noir movie.
Yeah.
Those noble connections really worked out for her.
Yeah.
I think she might have divorced by then.
Yes. One scene I did find really funny, and that was the hospital scene when Marlowe's next to the guy who's all in wraps. And he's like, I've seen all of your pictures. I thought that was so funny. I was like, that is good. And again, this is a really good example of a burst out laugh moment, but is played so subtly that if I were to envision that same scene happening today in a film, there'd be almost like a boing noise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved that, just that moment, that just sort of mumbling, oh, I've seen all your pictures too.
And I think the mumbling makes it work, even, is what a large part of why it works. Because I think if Mitchum had said it, then he would have said it as a gag.
Yes.
Whereas, it's just sort of something that Elliott Gould's Marlowe says, but it is laugh out loud funny. I think that it's a great line. And doesn't he say doesn't the nurse come in and she say, "Mr. Marlowe, what are you doing out of bed?" And he says, I'm not Marlowe, he's Marlowe."
Yes. I love that. He was good. Gould really was good as Marlowe in this. I would have been up for seeing another film with Gould as Marlowe. I think that's he was good enough. I'm like, yeah, it's a shame we don't have maybe one or two more of your take, but maybe less is more in this case. Maybe maybe this they wouldn't be able to sustain this sort of version of Marlowe for that length of time. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed him.
Yeah, I agree. I suspect it would be like, I suspect less is more is true, but I'd like to be given the option to say for certain.
Yes,
in that way.
Now,
I think a lot of it is also it's the connection between Altman and Marlowe, because I'm sure that Altman would not have agreed to do another Marlowe adaptation. He wanted to do his own stuff, and I think that's what really works. It's the way they work together. I mean, I even get the impression at times, having read all Leigh Brackett's novels and what I know of her as a person, because she was also, of course, not just a crime writer, she also wrote a lot of incredible science fiction, and her husband was Edmund Hamilton, who wrote the Captain Future series, who's one of the old great pulpsters. But she wasn't a person with a great sense of humour, so I do get the feeling that possibly a lot of this was improvised by Altman and Gould actually on the set.
Mm-hmm. I think you're spot on. I think so. I did find interesting though, because earlier we were kind of talking about how like there were scenes happening in this film that were reminding me of films in the past and films in the future. The final scene where Marlowe is walking down that road, that long road. The third man.
It's the third man. Yeah, absolutely.
The third man. I was like, interesting. Once again, we're looking back to the past as we move forward with the genre. And I found that a nice touch. Now, intentional or not, I don't know. I couldn't find a source that said yes or no on that, but seems pretty obvious to me.
Yeah, I think it's so clear. I think it just can't not be intentional, can it?
Don't know.
Nah, must be. I'm not buying it's accidental.
No. Do we? What's your thoughts on the ending a little bit though? Because obviously there are some changes. Marlowe blows Lennox's head off. We happy with that?
Go on, Maxim. I'll let you tackle that bone of contention first.
Well, obviously, knowing the book, obviously, the first time you see it, it does come as a surprise. But the script and the movie have taken so many liberties vis-a-vis the original novel anyway, so I accept it. Basically, in a way, it's Marlowe from little boy basically gradually grows up as the film progresses and comes to the realization that the world he's living in the 70s is as violent as the one his fictional self would have been in the novels. And there are lots of people getting their brains blown out in the novels. So,
true.
In a way, I think you needed that catharsis at the end of the film, because otherwise it would have been a bit slightly meaningless. I'm not saying that it was done out of a sense of morality, but I think the drama needed it.
Yeah. I think also it's a matter of Marlowe realizing that his faith has not been rewarded and was misplaced, and because all along he said Terry wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
and all the stuff that Marlowe has gone through in this film has all been for nothing because Terry let him down.
Yeah.
So is it faithful to the book? No. Is it the right ending for this film? I think it absolutely is. I think it absolutely is. I think it's the right ending for this Marlowe for the reason Maxim says. He's realizing that the world he's in, and that his code, his moral code, has no place in it because it belongs to Marty Augustine and he's like, and he's just, doing the best thing that he can to square it with himself. And Lennox didn't deserve his trust and he didn't deserve his faith. So there's only one thing you can do in this world with someone like that, and that's put a bullet in him. Nothing says goodbye like a bullet, as the tagline said.
I mean, it's true. It's true. I agree. I am totally cool with it. I think it's good. A couple of interesting facts that we all probably discovered in our research or know about this, but we'll share with the dear listeners. There was a Steve McQueen cameo in this film, supposedly, where he was going to Elliott Gould was going to ride an elevator with him, and he was supposed to cameo as Sam Spade. Now,
well, I'm happy it stayed on the cutting room floor or was never filmed.
Yes, I'm not entirely sure if it was filmed, but there's on the DVD. If you watch the 4K DVD, there's a documentary called Rip Van Marlowe from 2002, and they have photos and they talk about this idea that they were going to do, but for whatever reason did not end up being in the film.
I can't say I'm sorry either. I'm with Maxim on this. I think one private eye out of time is enough in one film, don't you?
And as much as I like both McQueen and Sam Spade, McQueen is just not Sam Spade.
No.
Other
interesting thing is that Gould actually was interested in doing a sequel. Both him and Altman envisioned doing one. And it was apparently it was going to be called It's Always Now, which featured an older Marlowe. So in the 90s and 2000s, they both expressed interest in wanting to do this sort of older version of Marlowe. And apparently it was based off of the short story The Curtain, which Gould had purchased the rights to from the Chandler estate for the grand total of $1. Does he still own that? Who knows? But sadly, that film was never made.
Yeah, I think he said he'd be happy to play Marlowe while he was physically capable of doing it, no matter when that was. And part of me is sorry that they didn't get him instead of Liam Neeson. I have to say, because it might have been something. He might have been able to do something about the film.
Yeah. Possibly, maybe when the Neeson one came out, that might. How old is Elliott Gould now? I don't know if that one would have worked as well.
Maybe not. He's very good at narrating the Chandler novels on audiobook. If you can get hold of them, they're very good. Yeah. They're abridged, but they're very good.
Yeah,
because he's got the right sort of voice, I think.
He does. He. Like I said, rewatching this again. This is the second time I've seen the film, and I'm like, you're actually great. You might be my second favorite Marlowe now.
Yeah.
Dick Powell is number 1 for me, and I think Elliott Gould might be number 2. What about you guys? Who's your top 2? Where do you rate Gould, rather? Where do you rate Gould as the as Marlowe against all the other players?
I'll take that first if I may, Maxine, because mine's dead easy. So Dick Powell is my favorite. Robert Mitchum is my second, and Gould is my third.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'd probably go along with Matt.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. If it wasn't for the big sleep, that goddamn big sleep that Mitchum did, I just really puts me off. It really does.
I sort of pretend that doesn't exist.
Well, I think it's not Mitchum so much who's to blame. It was Michael Winner.
It's Michael.
Yes.
Winner.
Oh, it's true. Yes. The blame is not
one of the worst directors of all time, and also one of the most unpleasant people I've ever had to work with. I did a couple of radio programs with him. and he was a nightmare. It was like I can't remember what the name of it. It was a quiz show, and I was on it twice.
Mm.
And he was a guest on it once, and he really insisted. He came into the studio at the BBC and insisted, "Can you give me the answers?"
Oh dear.
Only for the producer and the other people involved to tell him it's a quiz show, you know.
Yeah, that's sort of all you need to know, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think we have sort of reached the end of The Long Goodbye, so it's probably time to rate the film. So what we do every episode, we rate our films out of 5 falcons, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. The Long Goodbye, where do we rate it? Max, let's start with you.
I would say 4.
4. Yep, Matt.
Yeah, I'm giving this a 4 as well.
And I am also giving it a 4. It's a good solid 4. It's excellent. It's coherent in its incoherency. It holds together really well, and it has some incredible performances and some great music. I mean, obviously John Williams did the one song, and that's all you get. But every time that song comes on in different versions, it's fun. It's an excellent. I don't want to call it a gimmick, but it's kind of a gimmick, but it's one that is well executed, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I might actually have given it an extra half. I might have given it 4.5, but on watching it again last week, there's one thing that bothered me intensely, is that apart from Sterling Hayden and Elliott Gould, the 1970s men's haircuts were so dreadful.
Yeah. Terry Lennox is definitely a product of the 70s in this.
Isn't he just?
That's where the film dates.
Yeah.
Yes. I agree. I agree with that. It's I guess but then if you watch it in contrast with something like The Nice Guys, it's quite fun. But well, there we go. We have thoroughly investigated this. Maxime, thanks so much for joining us on this little investigation. If people want to find you online, where can they do that?
I'm on Facebook, and that's about it.
Fair enough. And
I'm not great on socials.
That's all right. What about books and whatnot? What are you working on? What do you want people to know about?
Well, my last novel came out in November, and it's called Manhattan Death Ballad, which is a second part of a duology, which is heavily inspired by Cornell Woolwich and the movies that Cornell Woolwich inspired. And I had an anthology of stories by lots of great people inspired by Hitchcock stories that came out in September. And I'm about to, in about 2 weeks, I'm about to leave the country for 6 weeks to go. I'm not on a desert island, but I will be on a warm island with my laptop trying to write my next novel, but I haven't got a clue what it's going to be about yet.
That sounds good. Well,
sounds good.
People go find these anthologies and these novels, and we will put links in the chat to your. Do you have a website? I can't remember now. You must have a website.
There is a website.
Okay, yeah, I'll grab your website, and it will be in the description of this episode. So yeah, well, like I said, we've thoroughly investigated The Long Goodbye, so we can put this file in the drawer. We will be back next week with another episode. So in the meantime, take care walking down those mean streets.